The authority spends about £30 million a year on dealing with disposing of Leicestershire's waste. It costs us about £21 million in the contracts that we have to deal with that waste. About £500,000 is attributed to contamination costs. Clearly we want to reduce those costs because that has a significant impact on the taxpayer. We've set a target to become net zero carbon by 2030 at the Leicestershire County Council. By separating our recyclables properly, we can contribute towards achieving that target.
We get to the yard in the morning about 6:30. We have a little bit of a briefing on, the day's events, or if we've got any concerns or anything like that. Obviously there's vehicle checks and things to be done and the appropriate paperwork to be filled out before we leave the depot. We probably leave about 7 o'clock, go out to the round and obviously put the recycling bins on that the residents want emptying.
Each crew gets given a set section and we go around each of our sections and we collect, for us recycling, but obviously other crews do refuse and garden waste. Probably about halfway through the day, take it to a recycling centre case pack where obviously we tip off, we have a little break and then we come back to the round and then carry on from where we left off.
Obviously with recycling, you've got to be watching out obviously for contamination and things that shouldn't be in the bins that obviously you do get.
All we do is we lift the lid and we have a quick look in the bin. You get the bins where you can either see straight away that there's something wrong with it, or if you lift up the lid you can see black bags on top. But then you do get the odd one slip by where you put it on and then you see that something that shouldn't be in there go in. I think the worst one that we see for recycling is black bags, because we can take normal carrier bags but we can't take any type of black plastic. I've had ones full of kids' toys before. Obviously clothes are a big one because we get given separate bags that residents are meant to put clothes in, but sometimes they just chuck them into recycling and obviously we can't take that.
If there is something in there that shouldn't be in there, and then it's called a contaminated bin, then obviously we leave it. It has to be stickered so the resident knows why we've not took their bin, and it'll have a phone number on so they can phone the council if there's any problems. And then we log it down on our logging in sheets that we've got in there, the address, the time we were there and what was in that bin. So then if there is any repercussions, or why didn't you take it, then we know exactly why we didn't take it and whose address it was and what was in it that shouldn't be in it. We do try our best to try and make sure that what we're putting on there is recycling. The residents, they're pretty responsible with how they recycle, but obviously you are going to get the odd few on a day-to-day basis where they do try and sneak things in there, or like I said, put things in there that they might think is recycling, but obviously it's not.
So when the vehicles come in, we weigh them in, we'll check the weights. If the weight's slightly high, we'll probably see if there's anything in there like contamination. Then they go round into the bays. They get offloaded, and once they're offloaded, they're checked inside, and then that's when they come back round to me and we weigh them out.
So on a daily basis, I'm controlling the flow of vehicles that are tipping material. So I go through and basically grade from an A to an E, dependent on how many contaminants they contain. The main contaminants we get: black bag waste, nappies, food waste, hard plastics, miscellaneous metals, things like ironing boards, kettles, hoovers. Tend to see them on a daily basis. I mean, we've had some large animals come through before, like an iguana. We've had furniture, car parts, front bumpers, rear bumpers, everything. And these are things that shouldn't be put in the recycling. Okay, so as you can see, things like hard plastic containers, from oils to storage things. Like a metal ceramic light stand. So that'll be metal and electric. Looks like we've got a microwave.
I'm the material quality supervisor. My main responsibilities in day-to-day is tracking incoming material quality, the outgoing material quality, and then the performance of the lads on the front yard. So there's three main items that affect us, which are sharps, hazardous substances, and animals, either dead or alive. It all have an effect on health and safety for anyone who's working here. So with, say, the animal waste, so if there was to be a dead, say, rat in a load, the whole load, wherever it would be rejected for recycling. So it'd be sent back to the UK, where we would then have to send it to disposal.
I'm responsible for the quality of bales going out to the customers, checking that there's no contamination in it and that everything meets their needs. The times of contamination we find in the bales depends on which product it is. So obviously if it's a mixed paper bale, we'll be pulling out plastics, film, which is like your carrier bags, standard household carrier bags, and we'll just have to remove it like with our hands or pliers. It is a lengthy process because if you do find contaminants, especially with nappies, which isn't recyclable at all, our procedure and protocol is that we'll break that bale down, reprocess it and make sure that there's no more in there.
So I look after any material that comes in direct from the council, so I have overall responsibility in making sure that it's the correct quality that we require. It has not too much contamination within that. And also then with the material that once it's been through the process, it goes into the backyard storage area, and I just have to make sure that we're booking the right vehicles and the right grade of material go to the right destinations. The material we get on site needs to be 100% recyclable material. However, we don't get that, and at the minute we're probably running at about 4.5% of the material we receive on site is contamination. The top 5 contaminations that we get within in case pack are nappies, food waste, textiles, sharps and children's toys. We can get about 4,000 nappies in a 12-hour shift. The thing with the nappies is that they all have to be hand-picked by a picker, so it's very unhygienic for the guys on site when they're picking them, so they're quite regularly having to change the gloves and making sure they're washing and doing everything properly. Textiles, although textiles are recyclable material, once it's been in a vehicle with glass gets impregnated within the material, it's no longer recyclable anymore. So things like that with the textiles need to be taken to your recycling textile points. Then we have food contamination, roughly within a month's material, so we have about 13,000 tonne of material in. You always seem to get about just short of a tonne's worth of food contaminated waste. Although it doesn't sound a lot, it restricts me for how long I can hold the material on site for, because it starts to decompose. And also if we start getting that food contamination within any of the material that is shipped abroad, the environmental agency will stop that vehicle from leaving site. Sharps, we get quite a lot of sharps, and again with the guys hand picking the materials, they get puncture wounds and things, so we just have to be making sure that we're protecting our staff with a right level of protection. With any of the contamination that we receive on site, there's obviously a cost effect back to the councils, but then that material we have to then send to incineration. So it doesn't go into a landfill, it's used for energy from waste, so something good comes from the material, but the only thing with the contamination, it could also contaminate then the good recyclable material. So if you're looking at things like nappies, it could contaminate all the paper and cardboard that's within that load. Here at Casepack we advise people not to put their recyclable material within bags, and if they have to and they feel it is necessary to put it within a bag, it's always please a clear bag and not a black plastic bag. The trouble with the black plastic bags is they're not be seen by the sorters, and also it means that my graders and the people on the tipping floor, they cannot see what's within that bag. So there could be contamination and things that they're not seeing when they're doing that part of the process. And also it means that somebody has got to rip the bag open in the first sorting cabin so they can empty the material out that's going to be recycled.
We deal with about 310,000 tonnes of disposable material each year. 55,000 tonnes of that is recyclable. We have recycling targets to meet, and they are set internationally as well as nationally. So the less we can contaminate our recyclates, the better. Well, residents are key to reducing the amount of contamination in our recyclates, and they can do a great deal. So here's my message to the residents out there. You can check what you put in your council provided bins and bags. You can keep items loose, but remember, don't put them in plastic bags, and put lids on cartons, jars and bottles. Always remember to rinse, dry and recycle, and where you can, reduce the amount of waste you produce. And of course, donate unwanted items like clothes and toys. They are just some ways that residents can help us achieve our recycling targets and reduce contamination in our recycling. If people would like to know more about how to recycle better or deal with their waste generally, please visit the Leicestershire County Council website. Alternatively, you can visit lesswaste.org.uk.